Hello, amazing parents and caretakers, and welcome to the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. I'm your family empowerment coach, Celia Kibler. I'm a mom of a blended family of 5 kids. I'm a grandma of 9 kids, an author, a teacher, a speaker, and a consultant with over 40 years of training and real-life parenting experience. I'm here to offer you practical, doable tips, strategies, and techniques that will pump up your parenting skills and create peace, love, and laughter throughout your family. In addition, I'll be interviewing some great humans that are on a mission to make your life a better, happier, and healthier life. So let's not waste any time and get started with the next episode of the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. Thanks for listening. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. I am really stoked about our guest today because you know what? It's like a Halloween special. We are Day of Calm. Day of Calm. That's my deal. Day of the Dead special. And we have with us Shaun Pritchard. He is all about witchcraft and learning about the spiritual world. And he is an expert. And you're going to find all about, he is a male green witch, right? Did I say that right?
Yeah,
and you're going to find out about that. And I think you will be engaged and amazed at what you didn't know or what you thought witchcraft might be. So, Shaun, thank you for being here. Welcome to the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's lovely to be here.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you here. And if we could just start out talking a little bit about, what you do and the work you're doing and what the reality is about witchcraft as opposed to what people tell us it is.
So I guess really the reason that we set this up in the first place is I've been a practicing witch for I don't even know how long, a long time. I grew up into that kind of world. And as sort of, I guess as time went on, I got into, I got into studying folklore and myths and legends, and I was fascinated by all of that. And as time went on, I started to realize that there was real actual knowledge and wisdom within these kind of stories. And we regard them as kind of stories for children, but all of them have a deeper origin, and they all have real meanings, because I guess if we go back to sort of prehistory times, we passed knowledge on before even language and writing was written. We passed knowledge on through our oral traditions, and so folklore and fairy tales are ways of passing knowledge and wisdom. So I started to understand that there was always meaning behind those things, and I tied that, and then I started to make the connections between my witchcraft sort of backgrounds, and I guess it sort of went from there. And with Silvercrow, with my practice itself, the idea is that I'm trying to sort of educate people to. So Silvercrow is essentially myself and my partner Claire, and we try to educate people to take away all of the nonsense that we hear about witchcraft. Witchcraft, we hear all the time that it's connected to the devil and devil worship and demons and all of this nonsense, and it's nothing to do with any of that. The devil isn't a figure that features within our belief system. It's a Christian made up concept. It's right. Not something we do. So the idea that any of us would worship the devil is just ridiculous, because it's not a figure that we recognize. And so it's the whole concept with the devil that was only sort of thrown in during medieval times, and particularly during the sort of times of the witch trials and so on, and sort of 14 and 1500s as well. And so really after that, that kind of nonsense kind of stuck around for a long time, and it still sticks today often. A lot of people will sort of say that witchcraft is demonic and devil worship and all of this stuff, but it's nothing. It couldn't be further from that. So I guess really the whole thing with Silvercrow is about helping people learn the truth of what it actually is, and take away the stigma and take away the superstition around all of it. it's not what most people think it is.
Well,
and it's far more beneficial.
I'm excited to learn more.
Yeah.
I'm super excited to hear about what you do. I love this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's always a fascinating one. I think I mean just before coming on this call tonight, we do a space every single week over on X. We do like we hold like a weekly space about this kind of topic, sort of esoteric and witchcraft and magic. And I did a space tonight that was all about the thinning of the veil this time of year, and so it's kind of jumping over from that kind of teaching type thing to jumping over to this. It's it's always an interesting one, but equally,
mind shift,
fascinating. Yeah.
So this is a parenting podcast, but they're not all parents that listen to it, and a lot of people have dogs. To tell you the truth,
okay,
there are people that reach out to me and go, "I take all your advice with my dog." So there's a variety of people, but for the most part, the people are parents. Everybody thinks parents only mean one thing. Like they only want to care about their kids, only want to care about, but they're humans. They want, they want to know about all kinds of things. And you never know what's going to touch base with a parent that will also touch base with a child, and there's all like, I remember when my kids were little, I guess when Kyle was, trying to think, he's 36 now. So I remember when the magic cards came out, and I guess they were out with him, and Dungeons and Dragons and all of that was back. Like my brother was like,
I remember all that. I played Dungeons and Dragons as a kid.
Yeah, he was way into Dungeons and Dragons. So, and Bennett's, I'm 66. He's 60 now. So way into Dungeons and Dragons. And tried to teach me, and I was like clueless.
Yeah.
But he loved it. Oh my gosh. And now my son is very into that. My son's a gamer. He's a game designer. He works for Santa Monica Games. One of those. I can't remember if it's Barbara or Monica. Mm-hmm. Whoever makes God of War. That's who he works
that's
for.
Awesome. Yeah.
And so he loves all this stuff. And the thing is kids love it too. So it's like, it's good to bring it to parents.
Yeah.
So, and bring it to my podcast. So my point is, is there anything you want? Do you just want to inform people? Is there a program you're offering? Like what, what's up? What's up, Shaun? Tell me the scoop.
Really, so, I'm a parent myself. I've got three kids. The youngest is my daughter. She's 16. And then I've got two grown sons as well. And I'm a grandparent as well, and
me too. Isn't the best?
It is, yeah. And
I'm getting my little 4-year-old Saturday for a week.
Nice.
I'm excited.
So, this is the thing. And so the sort of witchcraft stuff is kind of a lifestyle thing. And I think the big thing, I guess, I want to promote, prior to doing all this, I was a teacher for about 20 years as well. So teaching is something that I've always done, and obviously bringing up kids and stuff as well. So really now, I'm sort of in my sort of late 40s now, and so I'm at the point now where I want more. There's nicer things in life that I prefer the simpler things than all of the flashy stuff, and the fast pace of life I don't want anymore. I've lived the fast pace of life for too long, and I don't really want it. And so a few years ago, it's kind of, I've always been around this stuff. My mum was kind of a loose practice. She was a loose kind of practicing witch when I was growing up. So it was something that I knew of. It was, this kind of world was something I was aware of. But I guess really I didn't sort of lean fully into it until I was probably in my 30s maybe. And then it's just sort of gone on from there. And probably it was like earlier on this year, about 3-4 months ago, my partner Claire and I set up Silver Crow as a business, and Silver Crow is my witch name as well as the business name. And the idea of the business is essentially to try and teach the realities of witchcraft. A big part of my practice, I'm a green urban witch, and a part of my practice is herbalism and herb lore, learning about plants and the medicinal and the magical properties of plants. and how they can kind of help support us and how we can support them. And so the idea is that it's all about connecting ourselves with the natural cycles of nature, understanding plants and trees and their importance, and not just from like I think the often as humans we tend to look at trees and plants as things. We regard them as just parts of the scenery,
right?
But whereas herb lore and a part of my practice is we don't regard them as that. We regard them as beings in and of their own rights, and so we treat them accordingly. We treat them as beings with reverence and with acknowledge that they are a part of who we are. We couldn't exist without them. And
right.
There's so
I think
many
people don't realize we're all connected.
Yeah,
we're all.
That's exactly it.
It's all connected.
Yeah, and I think there's a tendency to think that nature is a thing that's out there, and we're in here, and that's not the case. We are nature, and nature is us.
Right.
We are one and the same.
I was just going to say that,
and we are part of that. So I think the whole thing with what we do at Silver Crow is I teach various courses online. There's the main course I teach is The Way of the Witch, and that's an 8-week kind of over Zoom sort of online course, and it's essentially covering the 4 kind of foundations of witchcraft practice, and that's how to direct and sense and raise and manage energy, and energy in all things. We're surrounded by different energies all the time, and often if we don't know how to manage those energies, then we get overwhelmed and we get anxious and we get angry or irritated or upset or confused, or all of the things that happen to humans. And I think the big thing is this practice is kind of teaching how to manage that energy and how to balance it, how to keep ourselves balanced and how to keep ourselves in this kind of state of equilibrium and understand who we are as people and what we are. So that's kind of part of it. Another part is about spellcraft and spellcasting, and spellcasting is not what most people think it is either. It's essentially an active form of manifesting change in your life or your immediate environment. So it's taking action upon the things that you want in life or the things that you want to change the outcome of in life. And then action in those things, and that's essentially what spellcrafting is. It's a kind of thought, whereas prayer is kind of a passive form of affecting change, whereas spellcraft is an active form of affecting change. And the idea is because you physically do something with your hands, you're doing some form of symbolic or ritualistic practice, then what happens is it's a psychosomatic process. So it tends to connect up the mind and the body, and then therefore you're creating new neural pathways in the brain, and then you're more likely to head towards your goal because you're physically and actively doing something that is pushing you towards that goal. And it's kind of like if we could all learn how to build an engine, right? A car engine, and we could watch videos or read books, but it's only when we actually get the parts of an engine and start touching it with our hands and start putting it together, and that bit goes there and that bit goes there. That's when the neural pathways start firing, and we build new neural pathways, and then we know how to build an engine. It's not from just watching videos and reading books. It's from actually doing the process. And that's what spellcraft is. We tend to have the intention of the thing that we want to manifest or change. And it could be anything. I work with clients. I do spells for clients, and I do like a consultation with them, and I work with them, and they come to me with all kinds of things. It could be stuff to do with relationships, stuff to do with money, stuff to do with grief or anxiety or whatever it is, or a wide variety of issues. And so the more we talk, what you often find is that the things that they think are the issue aren't actually the issue.
Not the issue.
Further back. So there's a lot of kind of psychology involved. Yeah. And I studied psychology, when I was sort of training. And so I have a psychology background as well. And then I also, I'm a herbalist as well. So I use sort of medicinal, natural medicines and herbal remedies and things. And so it's connecting all of that together, having the balance of nature and connecting with nature and helping people to connect with their own nature and with the natural world itself as well. And in order to sort of bring a greater sense of balance and balance and joy to their lives. And it's recognizing the simple things as joyful, and recognizing things, the whole thing with the word occult, we always sort of people always talk about, the occult, and it's seen as this kind of dark and dangerous thing. But the word occult just simply means that which is hidden. It's just looking at the hidden aspects of who we are. And of the natural world, and that could be everything. We look in ourselves and look inward at ourselves and figure out who we are and who we want to be and where we've been and where we want to go.
Right.
And we look at past, traumas and events that have shaped who we are now, and then we figure out how to sort of heal those wounds. And so it's an amalgamation of a lot of things, really. A lot of spiritual practices, a lot of sort of herbal healing, meditative type practices, and deepening our connection with nature, because everybody feels more relaxed, and it's a common thing. Everyone knows that we feel more relaxed when we're out in nature,
right?
And there's a reason
for that.
And
right.
that's the thing. So part of what I do and part of what we do at Silver Crow is we can try to help people develop this connection with nature. So through the course, we do sort of the management of energy, the spellcraft stuff. We do potion craft and how to craft potions that are, and potions, what people think of as potions are often different things too. A potion can be anything from a simple herbal tea right through to a bath that you put essential oils in. That's a big potion that you kind of lay in. And so there's lots of different things that make up a potion. And then we go into herb lore as well, and that's the whole thing about sort of regarding plants and trees as beings and interacting with them accordingly. So it's kind of provides a foundation, and the idea is that people provide I provide the foundation for people, and then they go on and develop the craft in whichever way they deem.
They need.
And everyone's craft is different. There's no kind of dogma or doctrine to this. It's kind of people develop it as that suits their way of life. I was always fascinated by trees and plants and folklore and things like that. And history. So I kind of lent into those disciplines. But other people lean into kitchen witchery. People bake their magic into food and use it that way. And I don't know, sort of hedge witches tend to be concerned with spirit, so they do a lot of stuff with working with spirit and clairvoyancy and the clear senses. So there's a bit of a bit of an amalgamation, and what we do with Silver Crow is we try and sort of educate people to take away this kind of superstition and fear that's based around witchcraft and magic and a lot of the indoctrination and propaganda that's kind of been forced upon us from organized religion or just from media and popular culture,
film
essentially. A lot of that is nonsense.
And you're right. And religion. And I just had a conversation with one of my clients, and she's an older lady, and we were talking about hope, and how hope is a thing that you hope all people have. And it's a trust, and yet so many people don't have it, and they give up on it, and it's a spiritual thing. And I was saying, even in the like when you think about hope itself and it being related to trust and it being felt internally, we do it every night when we go to bed.
Yeah.
Every night you go to bed, you set an alarm. Well, you wouldn't set an alarm unless you hope and trust that you're going to wake up.
Yeah.
And so every night, people that even feel like hope isn't real and there is no hope and all this live their life with these realities that they're not even aware of. Yeah.
And that's a big part of the sort of spiritual practice of witchcraft. It's kind of taking the responsibility for ourselves, I guess. With a lot of kind of religion, the idea, we're kind of trained within religion to look outwards. We look outwards at a god or a deity, we say, that is the god that does this and does that and is in charge of the whole universe, and therefore we seek him. We look to him or to her as advice and really, and to guide us and all of this stuff. But really, what that is doing is deflecting ourselves. We're ignoring what we are and what we need often, and we look outwards. And so the idea is with this kind of practices, we look inwards, and it's rather than looking outwards, we're looking inwards, and it's empowering ourselves and taking ownership of who we are and what we are. And that goes for our behaviors, the way we speak, the way we think, the actions that we take, the energy and company that we keep, and what energies we connect with. And so it's kind of all of that together, and bringing it all into a spiritual practice that gives us like this sense of control and balance of our lives. And I guess the whole thing with hope and...
Hi, this is Celia, your host and family and relationship empowerment coach, and mom and grandma, here to take a break from this podcast to give you a special opportunity. As parents, we all have those moments. The pressure builds up, the noise gets too much, and before we know it, we're raising our voices higher than we ever intended. But what if there was a better way? Introducing 21 Days to Stop Yelling at Your Kids, a revolutionary program designed to help you communicate with your children without yelling. Imagine a home filled with understanding and respect, where your words have impact without the need to raise your voice. Created through my over 40 years of experience, this course offers you practical, easy to implement strategies that work in real life. You'll learn through interactive lessons, engaging exercises, and a supportive community. No judgments, just guidance. Because being a parent doesn't have to mean you're perfect. It's about growing, and it's about becoming intentional. In just 21 days, life will be calmer and more harmonious. What if you don't get the course? Where will you be in 21 days? Still feeling like a bad parent? I encourage you to join the millions of parents that I have helped who have found a new path to communication and connection. Visit quityelling.com to enroll in the 21 Days to Stop Yelling course today. And for our podcast listeners, use the code PODCAST for a 60% discount. Quityelling.com, because love speaks so much louder than yelling. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you on the other side.
It's the trusting of the universe, that the universe has always got our back. It's always that we're never sort of alone. This whole connection that we have with the natural world, we're never alone. We are always connected, always. And I kind of, when I teach, I teach that we are in this kind of, it's almost like a spider web, and where there's one sort of thread that's rippled, and it sends ripples right across the web, and other beings feel it as well. And whether that's trees or animals or other people, we feel that. And an easy example is if you walk into the home of someone who's had an argument recently, and even though you didn't hear the argument and you weren't there for the argument, you still feel that heavy energy.
Yes.
And it's because it hangs around, it's sticky, it's like a web, and you walk into it as if you walk into a spider web, and it goes across your face.
People say you can cut it with a knife because it feels that heavy.
Yeah, because it's heavy and it hangs around. And it's the same with every energy, with good and bad, and heavy and light energy, we feel it all the time. And so it's just about sort of learning to manage that energy so that you don't get dragged down by that. Often we can go through life and day-to-day lives, and we feel heavy because we're dragged down by, we gather energy throughout the day.
And it's so destructive.
People. Yeah.
I don't know if you know that, like, my personal mission in life is to help 10 million parents stop yelling at their kids. Like, I'm all about ending that aggressive parenting, that screaming, that yelling, the parent. And part of the problem is the world thinks all of this anger and rage and all of this is just normal. Like, it's taken so oh, well, yeah, whatever. It's
Yeah.
like everybody yells at their kids or, and it's so destructive. And
it's the normalization, isn't it, of
is
aggression. And I think that's another sort of thing that with this whole practice, because we do a lot of kind of out in nature and we do a lot of grounding, and there's that trust in our own abilities, I guess, and our own sense of judgment. So we trust in ourselves. And because we trust in ourselves, then we also are responsible for ourselves as well. So there's an acknowledgement there that the energy that we put out is what we get back.
Right.
So if we put out awful energy,
so
we get
true
that
with
back.
parents.
Yeah, and we do. And
right.
When you do that as a parent, you shout and yell at your child, and what you get back often is a child that shouts and yells back, or makes you shout and yell more because they do some kind of undesirable action.
Exactly.
But
I
at the
just
same
had
time,
a
we're
parent
teaching
tell
kids
me
to be independent.
they were like, my son is hitting.
Yeah.
And, but it doesn't. And this was a conversation on Instagram. And it's like, and my wife, she's very aggressive and she gets mad at him and stuff like that. So, she sees nothing wrong with hitting him and yelling at him. I'm like, well, to hit him, to get him not to hit is illogical. Like, how does that make sense to you? And that's half the problem. And then they wonder where it comes from.
Well, we take energy,
what's your
don't
energy going to be?
Yeah, and we take energy. We're made of the energy of those who came before us, and we take on their mannerisms, their behaviors, and we only have to look at. I find myself saying stuff that my dad said when I was young, and I find myself doing stuff that my dad did when I was young, and so and at the time I always sort of say, I'll never say that. That's just stupid. I'll never do that. And here I am, and and I have my own kids, and I do those things, and we have those patterns. We repeat those patterns over generations, and equally we also carry the wounds of generations as well, and we suffer from those same wounds.
And and probably parenting's one of the biggest things impacted by that. Yeah, I remember saying something. I said something to my kids, I can't remember, that my mom would say. And I was like, I never thought I would say this, but it is, oddly appropriate at this moment.
But I think that's the thing,
I remember thinking that,
Yeah. And we do that all the time, and we carry over those wounds, and a part of witchcraft practice, and a part of the whole thing was shadow work. A big part of our practice is that, particularly this time of year, autumn is a time of year when we go inward, we look inward, and we do a lot of shadow work, and we do a lot of work on ourselves. And the idea is, because we kind of work around the cycles of nature. When the leaves are falling from the trees, it's a sign to us that, that's time for all of the old ways and beliefs of falling away from us. It's kind of shedding our leaves too. And so we utilize the cycles of nature in that way in order to sort of shed those things that are no longer good to us in our lives. And so we do a lot of shadow work, and a big part of shadow work is about those things, addressing those generational wounds and those family traumas, and then making them stop with us so that we don't pass them on to our children and we don't pass them on to future generations. So it's about taking that ownership and responsibility of our family line, I guess, in that way, and making sure that we don't carry those mistakes of the past forward.
Right.
And that's a big part of the practice. And again, the grounding and the connecting with nature, and learning to balance our energy and our behaviors and our language. And it's being very intentional and aware of your language and how you speak, how you think, how you move, how you act. And it's drawing intention and attention to all of those things on a day-to-day basis. And as a result of that, you develop this real sense of balance and kind of an appreciation for life in general, for all life, and not just human life, but animal and plant life as well.
Right. And and I think balance is so key. I mean, just the whole concept of balance, because I feel like for many people, many families, the problem is it is so imbalanced. It is not, they're running here, they're running there, they don't take time.
No.
They don't take time to slow down and breathe, and they overschedule, and everybody's stressed out, and it's terrible. It's honestly terrible. And I love all this, Shaun. I mean, this is practically a podcast all on its own.
It is that, and I think you sort of hit the nail on the head there with this fast pace that we live at, and really it's because our technology is training us to match its speed. Yes. Our technology is forever getting faster and faster and faster, and it's training us. We're not training our tech. The tech is training us to move quicker, to think quicker, to be available 24 hours a day. To always be on and on standby, and as a result of that, then we're constantly bombarded with energy and with media and with awful propaganda and news and terrible news and all of this stuff.
And illness, I think. Illness, all that causes illness.
Yeah, it definitely does.
People don't get enough sleep. And, and now it's, leading down to our children, because our children are getting phones earlier and earlier. And their parents don't set boundaries and limits, and they go to bed with them. And I'm sorry, but if your phone is sitting next to you, well, you can tell your child all you want. Yeah. Phone stays here. You're not going to touch it. If they wake up at 2 a.m, there's a phone there. Yeah. They're going to look at it. Yeah. And that's exactly it. It's that whole thing about sort of disconnecting sometimes, taking time to disconnect from tech, from the fast pace of society. And I think being out in nature, the idea is that with a lot of the practices that we sort of do, that I do, and my partner does, we do a lot of practices around sort of utilizing the natural world and drawing the parallels with our own lives. And as I was saying, the things like the leaves falling is a sign that, then it's for us to go inwards and shed the things that we don't need anymore. But also things like when you're out in nature, you just using all of your senses to, rather than just, we can take a walk through the forest and it's great, but walking through the forest with an intention and with full intention and awareness and using all of your senses is a completely different experience. And that's part of it, that when walking through the forest and using your senses, just being still in the forest, listening to the sound, listening to the silence underneath the sound, and focusing your mind towards the silence, and then bringing it back and then focusing around the noises that you can hear and the smells that you can smell and the tastes and the feel of the breeze on your skin and all of those things and everything that you can see, and developing that over time and developing those senses it heightens your senses, and you start to realize you start to feel a part of that environment. And especially if you go there often, if you go to the same place often and you do this practice often, you start to feel that you're part of that environment. And other creatures that live there also start to regard you as part of that environment as well. And so they start to trust you. And then you develop this bond and this relationship with the animals as well. And so there's all of that draws together with this type of practice. And it's about slowing down and being still. And also, aside from the mental health benefits that does, the physical health stuff as well, taking your shoes and socks off and walking across the grass is a wonderful thing. And it floods your body full of electrons. It oxygenates the blood, increases circulation, and lowers inflammation just in an instant of doing that. And the more you do that, then obviously the better that is. But aside from that, we've got like the essential oils that various plants and trees emit, all the time. And that's essentially their chemical immune system. We breathe in that smell of pine or cypress or something when we stand near it. And that smell is the chemical immune system of the tree. And when we breathe that in, that kickstarts our NK cells that fight disease like cancers and stuff, So it starts generating more of those killer cells that fight the diseases. So it's just breathing in the immune system of the plant is boosting our own immune system. So it's developing that kind of symbiotic relationship with the forest and with the natural world, and then utilizing that, and also, but sharing it rather than sort of exploiting it for its properties. It's about sort of sharing the space and sharing the environment and giving back to those places too. Right. I forage quite a lot, and we forage wild, wild herbs and mushrooms and all kinds of things. And we never take too much, we never take more than we need. We leave more than we take, and we leave it in a way that's not detrimental to the environment, So it's all about kind of maintaining this balance and maintaining this this relationship with the natural environment. And then as a result of that, then it gives back to us because we respect it, we honor it, and it gives back to us, Right. And I think it's easy to sort of
get thrown off track with the natural environment, with the weather, for instance. At the minute the storms in Florida, and the awful sort of hurricanes and stuff happening in Florida, and all of that stuff. Those things really, it's a tendency to kind of curse them, and sort of say, oh, this is an awful thing. And yes, it is an awful thing, but it's also a part of natural cycles, and it's a part of the way that our weather patterns work. And I think it's about sort of being aware that nature it's infinitely healing and beneficial to us.
I feel like,
but it's equally cruel as well if it wants
the way of Mother Nature saying, "I'm still in charge here."
Yeah, and that's it. We get above our station and we tend to think that we're in control, and we're not.
Right, and we're not.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I think it's just recognizing that and being aware of that and understanding that and then being good with that. It's an acceptance of those things.
Yeah. I agree. I totally agree. My sister teaches Native American healings and ceremony and stuff like that. Her husband does as well. And she says, you were talking about animals and crops and stuff. And she says in their culture, if they kill an animal, they thank it, first of all, for giving of themselves. And they use every part of it. Like they never leave anything behind.
Yeah. And that's exactly a big part of it too. I'm a lot of people kind of assume that because I'm a green witch, I'm kind of, they assume I'm vegan, or they assume I'm, I don't agree with hunting and all of those things. I don't agree with hunting for sport, but just like the Native Americans, I agree with the fact that as humans, we are designed to eat other creatures at times, and to utilize things of other creatures. And there's a reason that all of these creatures are here and exist together. And yes, we shouldn't take a life meaning, for no reason, but nature takes lives all the time,
right.
And we are just part of nature. We are just another part of that. We are
exactly.
No one would say a lion is evil for killing a gazelle. It just happens. It's part of nature.
Right. Circle of life.
We are beasts at the end of the day. We are still animals, whether people want to admit that or not, but we are.
Exactly.
And we're part of nature, and that's a part of nature. There's a lot of kind of parallels with Native American culture. I guess the sort of type of practice that I have as a green witch, and particularly as a male green witch, is probably like more in line with kind of ancient druidic practice, ancient sort of Celtic sort of druid practice, I guess.
Right.
And I lean heavily towards sort of Norse sort of ways of practice as well, sort of Norse magic, things like runes, and like the sort of that Vikings would have practiced, for instance. So I lean in more that kind of direction, which is where Silvercrow comes from, because I kind of associate with Odin and his ravens and crows, right. Of Hugin and Munin, which is thought and memory. So I kind of associate with those heavily, but yeah, so I lean towards that sort of type of magical pantheon, I guess. But it incorporates into my life. And in terms of gods and goddesses and stuff, I'm not like I don't pray to a god or worship a god or goddess particularly. I see them as kind of archetypes, as like personality archetypes. And I think we can learn from that. I study folklore. I love folklore and myths and legends, and I think we can learn from the archetypes, the personality traits of gods and goddesses and mythological beings, because they tell us something about who we are.
Right.
And I think it's valuable, and there's always lessons and truths to be learned from every folklore, fairy tale, nursery rhyme, all of it.
And so people unfortunately are so quick to judge and criticize and cancel, and they're not catching, the reality that they should be listening and learning.
Yeah.
They miss that. Well, I don't need to listen to that. I don't believe in this. I don't,
Yeah. We dismiss stuff as childish. And I think the big thing is, as children, we all know that we're magical. We know that the world is magical. But we lose it over time because the education system tells us that we need to grow up and stop listening to silly stories.
Stop acting like a child.
Yeah. But really we need to start connecting more with our child selves. Yep. And seeing the magic again and connecting with the magic again, because it makes life a lot more fulfilling.
Yeah.
And a lot more joyful.
It's honestly more natural.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
this whatever they want people to fit into is not natural.
No.
And they rush kids along in school, and they don't give them the opportunity to explore and to, be curious and mindful. And kids all start out with all their senses in full action.
Yeah.
I'll tell parents, you set your child up for success, not failure in your home. And parents will go, oh, we can't say no anymore. I'm like, it has nothing to do with saying no. It has to do with realizing what a child is and who a child is. And if you're going to put a fine crystal vase on a table that you don't want broken in reach of your toddler, you're setting them up for failure, because they're going to want to touch it, smell it, taste it, play with it. All the senses are going to come to life. They're going to see the sparkle. And you have to be the one that puts it up high, so that it doesn't, as opposed to sitting there and saying no 10,000 times. And it's like you say, people lose that, and it's a shame. People don't, I can't even tell you how many people come to me and say, well, if I don't give my child a screen, what do they do? Like, I even have moms say, I don't even know how to play with my child.
Yeah.
I said, you sit down and you play and you
it's
imagine
1,000,001
things.
And and I think that's the thing. I mean, I'm quite lucky in the way that sort of my kids, that I've sort of brought my kids up, is the fact that, they've spent a lot of time outside. We spent time climbing trees. We spent time making dens, and
so healthy.
All of that stuff. And now as a result, they love that. I'm from a family of quite a long line of gardeners and allotment owners. We all had allotments. My grandparents did, my parents did, and I did, and my brother has, and my son has. And so we all kind of had that. And they spent a lot of time. They all grew up knowing where food came from, where vegetables grew, how they grew, what you could eat. They grew up, we foraged as kids. So they all grew up knowing what you can eat in the wild, what berries to eat, what leaves to pick, what herbs to pick, and all of these things. So they all grew up with that knowledge and knowing that. And so now, my oldest son and his daughter, he does the same with her. He's teaching her the same things, and she goes to a woodland school. She goes to a school, a nursery, which is a sort of kindergarten, which is all about forest play. They play outdoors. Awesome. They splash in puddles and dig in mud and pick up bugs, and
which is what they should be doing.
All of that stuff. Yeah. And as a result of that, she, if I walk down the street with her, she'll be able to name most of the weeds growing out of the pavement. She'll know what they are. She'll know what you do with them, if they're useful or not, or if you can eat them, or if you can't eat them, or if they're medicinal or whatever. And she knows that, and she's 3.
Right.
She knows that already.
It's amazing.
So it's something
and what they don't realize
on.
is they should be learning like that till kids are 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And they they just miss the boat, and they go so against the true capability of the brain at that age.
Yeah.
And it limits things. It limits their learning. And people think, oh, it's just play. No, it's education. It's all education. And that's how they should be educated till they're 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah, well, it's the creativity is, magic and creativity are one and the same, really. And there's creativity and magic and creativity, and I think there's practices that we do as creative beings. That all of us are creative in some shape or form, and children particularly are all creative beings. They are born being creative beings, and our sort of default state is to create. That's what we do.
Right.
we think, we speak, and then we create, and that's what we do. And it's something that we forget how to do it growing up. A lot of us kind of forget because we're busy doing our lives, in the prescribed way that we're told to live our lives.
Right. Following the rules, doing what you're supposed to be doing
go to work, come home,
they give you,
do the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And so really we kind of forget that over time. And I guess as part of this sort of way of life is that we remember that again. It's connecting with that. And I trained in fine art as well when I was a teacher, and so I taught art and design, And I also, I'm a graphic designer. My other business is a graphic designer as well. So I've always been around into this kind of creative world, and I'm also a painter. I paint a lot of my own stuff and sell paintings and stuff. And as a painter, that's a form of magic in itself. It's a form of channeling of energy. We channel our emotions and our energy into a canvas via the medium of paint. It's channeled through a paintbrush, and a paintbrush in that way acts very similar to a wand in witchcraft. It's you point with a wand in witchcraft. We use wands to point and direct energy, and we use a paintbrush the same way. We're pointing a paintbrush and we're directing energy into a canvas, and that's why when you see a painting, it evokes emotion, because we're passing the emotion that we feel when we paint it into the canvas, and it's being stored and then viewed by somebody else. So it's a magical transference of energy just in that, through in the form of paint. And whether that's singing or dancing or drawing or photography or whatever it is, we do the same in that way. Right. Those things, witchcraft is a tool to be used in the transference of energy. And that's essentially what we do when we create anything. And so that's how we do it. And that's essentially what witchcraft is. It's just another form of energy transference and management in that way. The courses and stuff, I mean, the courses are we're constantly developing new stuff all the time, because as you can imagine, the subject of witchcraft is kind of vast. And it's far too much to stick into a single course, or
I'm sure,
or to several courses. Even that's why there's thousands of books on it. It's a huge topic. But we run a group on Facebook as well, which is called Beneath the Canopy, and that's where I kind of share a lot of my practice, but also I dig into a lot of things like that are sort of like folklore, myths and legends, fairy tales, nursery rhymes, songs, all kinds of things, because there's magic hidden in a lot of the stories and the nursery rhymes and fairy tales that we know well, or that we think we know, but there's a lot of hidden knowledge within those things too. And so I talk about those things, and we talk about historical stuff, and it's just a really lovely sort of a space to be able to share this stuff, and people love it. It's growing all the time. And then very, very shortly, we are just releasing our own podcast as well.
Oh, good. What's that going to be called?
That's called the Urban Witch Podcast. And that's the first episode will go live very, very shortly, within, a couple of days, really. And that's all about the word witch and what it actually means. That's the first episode.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
We hold, thank you. Yeah. And then we hold various different, events and stuff as well. We're planning on holding a silent supper on Halloween on Samhain, which is all about sort of remembering ancestors and honoring the spirits of the dead, and basically inviting the spirits to a dinner party with our friends and family, so that's kind of what that's all about. So that's something that we're sort of putting together now, and we hold get-togethers in our local city as well. So we do a lot of stuff, and there'll be going forward, I'll be doing a lot of public speaking and various talks and about this world that this magical world we live in. So there's lots of exciting stuff to come.
Well, I love what you do, and I love talking to you. We could go on and on. Okay, so is your website silvercrow.com? What's your website?
No, it's silvercrow.uk.
Oh, silvercrow.uk.
Yeah.
So, Shaun, it's been great talking to you. I've really enjoyed this. You can find Shaun at silvercrow.uk, and all about him and his courses that you heard about. Shaun, if you would you offer our listeners one more piece of advice? Something, if they're like, how do I get involved? How do I get started? What's a good piece of advice? You've already offered so much about going outside, but what's something you would let them know that they could start doing after this?
Definitely get in touch and do our courses. That's definitely a great start. But also, really, just I think the biggest thing to do is throw away all of the stuff that you think you know about witchcraft, and and start from scratch as if you know nothing. That's always a good place to start, I think. Dump the superstition, dump the satanic nonsense, and talk to real witches who will sort of tell you exactly how it is. It's a great place to start. And there's lots of books about witchcraft and what a witch really is. Yeah, definitely dump the superstition is the biggest one.
That is great advice. Great advice. And if you didn't get the feeling from this podcast that it's not what you were taught it was, then we missed our boat. But I think you learned a lot just from listening to this short podcast. So thank you, Shaun, so much for being with me and being on the Pumped Up Parenting podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been lovely to talk to you.
And to all of you, if you found this fascinating, share it, because everybody's interested. And if you love this podcast, please leave a comment wherever you're listening to it. As always, I appreciate you being here. Shaun and I both are grateful for your time and that you spent time with us in your busy schedules. And we ask you to slow down those busy schedules a little bit, as you heard. But as we go on and we end this podcast, as always, I wish you days filled with peace, love, tons of laughter. Really is the best medicine. We love to laugh more, find your funny. And I'll see you next time on the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. Bye-bye, everyone.